So today we're going to be working on our gold twist illustration. So we're going to start with the pencil shading part of the exercise, and instead of spending a long time trying to get this twist just so in our book, we're going to trace over it using tracing paper, and then we're going to transfer that into our sketchbook. So when we're tracing over it, I want you to be thinking about the form of the image that you're tracing and really thinking about what direction the metal's going in, which one is the plane and which one is the twist, which one's the edge of the metal, and think about those lines as you're drawing them. We're going to flip over our tracing paper, and then we're going to repeat the process. And by doing this, we're going to be transferring our lead pencil that we've just drawn on the other side of this tracing paper into the sketchbook. So we're going to end up with a mirror image. Again, I'm lifting my pencil there because it's flipping over to the other side of the metal twist. That just helps illustrate where the twist happens. I could just draw my pencil straight through that curved line that is illustrating the edge of the metal, but that's not going to give you a good idea of where the twist is happening. So that's what I mean by paying attention to what's happening in the drawing that you're drawing. We're not just tracing the lines, we're actually thinking about what's happening in our drawing as we're tracing. And we're going to be applying the correct amount of pressure to our pencil marks if we're doing that. There we go, the lifting of the pencil again. Just gives you a good idea of where the twist is happening in the metal. There you go, you've got another impression on your page. And you can do this as many times as you like, because we're just going to be focusing on practicing our shading work. So now, with a sharpened pencil, I'd like you to go over your traced line and just give it some better definition. We're still not pushing very hard, but we are tracing over the line, making it a complete line. And again, we're thinking about the shape that we're trying to draw here. So thinking about how it twists under, lifting our pencil at the right moment, and drawing in all the sections. This stage of the process is all setting the scene in your brain for the next stage, which is going to be shading. So whilst this might seem repetitive, every time you make these marks, you're building some muscle memory in your brain between your hand and your eye for the shape that you've just created. And when you freehand draw this shape, you're going to have a good idea of what the shape should look like because you've got memory of tracing it lots and lots of times. Now we're going to be looking at the shading stage of this process, and I want you to take this stage in sections. So I'm going to start with that top section, and I'm adjusting the position of my book to be more comfortable for the direction of the shading that I'm going to be doing. Now, shading work is quite different to line drawing. The hold of the pencil is slightly different. You're a lot more relaxed, and you have to shift your mindset to thinking of your pencil more like a paintbrush than a pencil, because you're now doing rendering. You're applying a technique to your 2D image, which is a line drawing. You're now applying some rendering by putting this shading on. So stop regularly and look at what you've drawn and compare it to the image that you're copying, and think about how the light is being reflected across this surface. So we can see from the image that we're copying that we're trying to mimic a shiny surface, and with a shiny surface you often get bands of light that reflect across, and between these bands of light you get darker bands of shadow, and that's what we're trying to mimic here. We don't have to get it exactly the same as what's on the page, but we have to try and imitate what it might look like. So this can be slightly different each time you do it, but the overall effect will still be successful if you think about the twist that's happening in this piece of metal that you're drawing. So it goes quite tight there in the twist, so the angle of the shading line has changed to match that twist. And there's a crease in the middle of this twisted piece of metal, so that's why we're stopping at that center line, because the direction of the metal reflections is going to change on the other side of that twist, on the other side of that crease, sorry. So continue to build up the shadows on the reflection of your piece of metal, and continue to stop and observe what you've done so far and assess whether or not you need to add more shade, or you might need to take away some marks that you've made with your eraser, and that's fine to do as well. When you're shading, it's very quick to, if you rub away some of your work, it's very quick to reapply. So don't worry about, ruining what you've done by using an eraser. That's okay. Moving over to the other side, always thinking about the plane of the metal that you're trying to illustrate and what direction it's facing, and therefore what sort of reflection it might be getting from our imaginary light source, which we always have in our illustrations. There's always an imaginary light source. Often it's from the top left-hand corner. So underneath the twist is probably going to need to be quite a bit darker than the top side to give you definition of where that light source is coming from. So continue to work on your shading and keep referring to the image that you're copying, and you can see mine are not quite there yet, but with time we'll get there. Enjoy, have fun practicing.